With that, we welcome you to the fairest show on television. Welcome back. Day after Labor Day, the Tuesday after Labor Day, begins the sprint. Now just 63 days out from November 5th. A lot happened while you were enjoying your Labor Day weekend. You'll see some of it, most of the important moments throughout the show. First tonight, Comrade Kamala and Crooked Hillary. Team Trump wants to turn Harris into Hillary Clinton. Worked in 2016. That's their plan this go around. The new plan laid out first in the Washington Post. Trump aims to drag down Harris as he scrambles to keep up in a tight race. The Republican nominee's advisors and allies are clear-eyed about the unlikelihood of improving his standing. That leaves one option, damaging hers. This morning on MSNBC, the host of Morning Joe made the same case.
Just look at the favorable, unfavorables. Donald Trump way upside down by, close to 20 points in the 30s for likable. And then you have Kamala Harris actually upside. I think it's like 46, 43. That is a huge gap. Their goal is to make people hate Kamala Harris.
Yes.
And that's where we are.
So the next 63 days of American politics will look something like schoolyard taunting sessions. In fact, we've already seen it happening with Trump's use of nicknames. It's the exact same playbook we saw with Crooked Hillary.
We're going to defeat Comrade Kamala Harris, Comrade Kamala Harris, Comrade Kamala Harris.
Crooked Hillary Clinton.
Crooked Hillary.
Crooked Hillary. Wait. Crooked. You should lock her up, I'll tell you. Crooked Hillary.
Bad people. Crooked Hillary.
For her part, Harris is up in every major national polling average in most swing states, including the new poll from ABC News. It found voters view Harris more favorably as a person than they do Trump. Voters also said she's more qualified to be president. Yet Harris still is running as the underdog. Yeah. Everybody always wants to be the underdog. She is not. Perhaps that's because her lead in the polls is slim compared to where Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton were at this point in the race. And that is the important part to point out. Pollsters always seem to underestimate Donald Trump's support. The Real Clear Politics average of polls shows Harris holds a 2-point lead. At this point in 2016, Clinton led by just under 4%. Biden was up a whopping 7%. For Trump, the recipe is simple. He has to turn the vibe and values campaign on its head. But he has not yet found a way to do it. Bill O'Reilly is here, host of the No Spin News, author of the coming book, Confronting the President's No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. Mr. O'Reilly, good to see you, sir. Thank you. Is this Trump's only option, only path to victory, is going negative?
Trump's always going to go negative. I mean, just always in his DNA. That's how he conducts his affairs. So I had John McLaughlin on the No Spin News tonight, my television broadcast, and you can check that out on BillO'Reilly.com. McLaughlin is the Trump pollster, the guy who does the internal polling. Honest guy, not trying to spin it. And essentially, he's got Trump up by maybe 1 point, but I believe the race is a dead heat because the difference is this year that Donald Trump's support is very rabid among the MAGA and conservative crew. Very, very rabid. Kamala Harris's support is thin because she has not defined herself as a candidate yet, and I don't believe she ever will. She is Joe Biden light. And the way to go about undermining her campaign is to ask her direct questions. Now, CNN had an interview with Kamala Harris. Unfortunately, Dana Bash, who is a good correspondent, didn't really understand who she was interviewing. She doesn't understand Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a woman who memorizes things and has got 10 answers for any question you would ask. She's got 10 memorized that she can plug in. So my values haven't changed. What does that mean? Nobody knows what that means. So what does Trump have to do in the debate, which is everything? All right? If Donald Trump does not win the debate, and the media will never say he won even if he does, but if he doesn't win it for the American people who will be watching in great numbers, then I think Harris will win the election. But all Trump has to do is, A, be under control, discipline. And when he's asked a question by the two ABC moderators, who will not ask especially hard questions of anybody, they're just not cut out for that. They're not Mike Wallace. They're not Tim Russert. Trump says, I will get to that question in a moment, but here's what I'd like to know. When I left office, inflation was 1.4%. A year after Kamala and Joe, inflation was more than 9%. Can the vice president explain how that happened? Simple question, under 10 seconds. I've got 10 of them.
So, Bill, I know you got 10 of them. At least according to the rules we've seen, Donald Trump has agreed not to ask questions. Now, that's the latest version of the rules that got put out. We'll see the final one.
I have not seen
coming up. Well, there you go.
Then he can make a statement.
No. Then he can make a statement. But he makes statements all the time. He makes statements all the time. It doesn't seem exactly to be working.
I'm just telling you what Trump has to do to win this debate.
Okay. All right, so I think about
Kamala Harris
what
is
you just said.
With memorized answers.
No, I think about what you're saying about how Kamala Harris hasn't been defined. That seems to be by design, right? Because Joe Biden wasn't defined in 2020.
Absolutely.
He moved to the center after the primaries. Didn't do a lot of interviews. We had this video queued up. I think it had already played, but it's of Kamala Harris walking from the motorcade to Air Force Two. Normally, at the moment where they would walk over to the press corps and take some questions, have some conversations. She looks like she's on her phone. She has earbuds plugged in. Evidently, she's still back in the day with wired earbuds. She gets to the top of the stairs there and turns with her phone as though she's still on the call, right? With the earbuds coming out and in her ear, which may be how she talks on the phone. It's not how I do. Is that, I understand that you don't like it, but it's a really smart strategy.
Why? She's not going to answer questions anyway. I don't care what she has in her ears. I care what's between them. Okay? So Joe Biden had a record. He was in the Senate for years. And he had bills, and he was a candidate for president, all of that. Kamala Harris, in 7 years, 7.5, has not done one thing on the federal level to help anybody. And we investigated her claim, Leland, you'll find this interesting, I hope, that she took on the cartels as Attorney General of California. No, she didn't. Her office didn't initiate any investigations. She just took what the local police and the state cops gave her, like any AG would. She didn't do anything special. So it's all about rehearsal for Kamala Harris. And I'm telling you, and the NewsNation audience needs to understand this, if you're Trump, you have to define her. You have to define her by either asking a question or making a statement. She doesn't know why inflation rocketed. She doesn't know how to solve the Middle East.
Oh, come on, Bill. She's going to have a memorized answer for all of those. She's going to debate camp for 5 days.
But they don't make any sense. They don't make sense.
Okay.
They don't make sense. Okay, so the American, I don't think most Americans
to voters who don't like Donald Trump, to voters, though, who don't like Donald Trump, and a majority of Americans, his unfavorable numbers speak for the same. So you don't think there's persuadable voters?
They're not going to vote for him. I do. I think there's about 10% of persuadable, apathetic voters, people who don't pay attention till the last minute. It's like shopping on Christmas Eve, okay? That you can move them if you demonstrate that your opponent, all right, because remember, Trump has 4 years to run on. Kamala has nothing to run on. Nothing. The Biden administration has been a disaster. This campaign's like the campaign of 1980. Reagan and Carter. The Democrats are telling everybody Carter was the greatest president. Everybody knew he wasn't. So now you got to tie in Kamala Harris with Biden. And the only person who can do it is Trump. The press isn't going to do it. The pundits can't do it. But Trump could do it if he starts to make statements that are simple and clear in the debate.
Okay, so if he does that in the debate, here he is at a Moms for Liberty event. If you want to think about a moment, to really be on your game and to begin to define yourself and define your competition or opponent, it would be that. Here he is about transgender students. Think about it.
The transgender thing is incredible. Think of it. Your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. The school decides what's going to happen with your child.
That's sort of beyond hyperbole, really. Why does you keep saying he just needs to give simple answers and make simple statements and define Kamala Harris. Why miss out on this opportunity to make enormous points with an audience ahead of Labor Day that's going to be talked about all weekend?
I don't know. The trans thing is annoying to conservatives. California wants to take away parental rights. That's pretty serious, but I don't think it's in the top tier. The top tier are the economy, the border, and foreign affairs. That's the top tier. On all of those things, Kamala Harris has not put forth any solutions whatsoever. Oh, we need a two-state solution. Come on. Leland, you're probably the best expert on television about a two-state solution. You know, as well as I, there's only one state. That's Israel. Gaza and Hamas and Hezbollah and the PLO aren't states. They're Nazis. They're run by Nazis. You don't negotiate with people who are going to gun down hostages in tunnels. You can't negotiate with them. So when you hear that kind of, we need a two-state solution, it's bogus. And that's the kind of stuff that Trump's got to pick up on. Whenever she says something crazy, he goes, she said this. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Look, my book comes out next Tuesday, a week from tonight. We've got the promo. Kamala Harris at this point in history is one of the weakest presidential candidates ever in this country. She has not defined herself on any serious issue. She's running on joy. She's running on values. This is beyond anything that I've seen, and I know them all from Washington on. I've never seen this. Right. And she gets away with it because the media is compliant. The media is rooting for her because they hate Trump.
Hard to argue in terms of the two-sided coverage. It's something you've been talking about since I've known you. And speaking of your book, that comes out on Tuesday. The book is out September 10th. Bill O'Reilly's Confronting the Presidents. A week from Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, is our special that is going to air. We'll go through the book, and you get to rank your top 5 worst and top 5 best presidents. Bill, thank you. We'll talk to you next week before the debate.
I appreciate you doing that, Leland. Thanks for having me in tonight.
Thanks, buddy. All right, thank you. NBC News, speaking of the news, NBC issued an apology for carrying Kamala Harris's water. How Gold Star family shamed the network into admitting their mistake. Plus, Joe Biden thinks getting a ceasefire in Gaza is his foreign policy legacy. Will he take Hamas's side to do it? Donald Trump appears to have fully flipped the script on Arlington Gate. That is the controversy over pictures and videos taken among the gravestones for a ceremony honoring the 13 Americans killed at Abbey Gate during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The ceremony happened a week ago, and his campaign released a TikTok video of him and the Gold Star families paying their respects to the fallen in Arlington Section 60. Arlington Cemetery forbids taking pictures in Section 60 for political purposes. And the Sunday shows, along with their anchors, thought they had a real scandal on their hands.
The matter is closed.
I think the matter is closed about the altercation, alleged altercation, which you didn't see, but I'm not sure it's closed with the idea that they seem to have broken the rules.
She could have gone to the cemetery and honored the sacrifice of those young men and women, but she hasn't. She never has spoken to them or taken a meeting with them.
Well, they did meet with them during the dignified transfer. They were with them at the dignified transfer.
That last one didn't go well. NBC had to issue an apology. Meet the Press show had to apologize after their host, Kristen Welker, claimed Harris met with Gold Star families of troops killed in Afghanistan. On our broadcast this morning, incorrectly implied that both President Biden and Vice President Harris attended the dignified transfers of 13 American service members during the Afghanistan withdrawal. Biden was in attendance when he looked at his watch, as you will remember, but Harris was not. Over the Labor Day weekend, Harris attacked President Trump for accepting the invitation of the Gold Star families of the 13 servicemen killed during Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal to appear at the ceremony at Arlington. Those families turned Harris's criticism around, defending Trump and taking Harris to task for doing little in their time of need.
Vice President Harris, I ask you, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success? President Trump has called. President Trump shows up. But President Trump takes the time to hear our loved ones' stories.
Frank Sesno is here, Director of Strategic Initiatives, School of Media and Public Affairs at George Washington University. With him in a second. First, Christy Shamlin, mother-in-law of Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole G., who was killed during the Afghanistan withdrawal. Christy, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Let's just start at the beginning. Why was Donald Trump at this ceremony?
Thank you for having me. There are 3 of our Abbey Gate killed in action who are buried at Arlington. And the families invited him to come and lay a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier with us, as we do every year for the anniversary of our loved ones' deaths. And he agreed, and we coordinated with both the Trump team and Arlington to make sure that was all within protocol, and we didn't disrupt, any services that were happening at Arlington or anything like that. And he asked if he could come to the grave sites and lay flowers on their graves. And we said that we would very much like him to do that. And he did. And he spent time with all of our families. He didn't speak very much at all. I can't imagine how this could be seen as a campaign, any kind of campaign ad. But he didn't speak very much. He listened to our stories about our loved ones. And it was pretty short and sweet. I didn't notice any incidents or drama. We had a nice time celebrating the lives of our loved ones. And then they left, and we spent the rest of the day at Arlington, just like we do every year on that anniversary. The aftermath and everything that's happened since then has been really surprising to us.
I can imagine. Did you all invite President Biden or Vice President Harris for the ceremony?
We sure did, and I have, paperwork in my email to show that. One of the senators, Senator Cox, actually extended an invitation for us, and it was a very heartfelt letter. I think that it at least deserved a response. We still have not ever received a response.
Wow. I had not heard that in the reporting, at least so far. The New York Times headline is this: Trump campaign uses statements from Gold Star families to attack Harris. It was the very latest effort by the Trump campaign to defend itself after the campaign defied a ban on political campaigning at Arlington National Cemetery. Were you attacking Kamala Harris, or were you responding to her attack?
We are responding. We were floored to see her social media post, and we're responding. We're still desperate to get answers and to help prevent this from happening again. That's all we want to do, moving forward, and honor our loved ones. And we just haven't felt that from the current administration.
I know that the families of Abbey families have spent a lot of time with former President Trump. That's meant a lot to you. Tell me about how you think your daughter-in-law would be interpreting all this.
My daughter-in-law was a believer in a positive mental attitude, and I try to embrace that as much as I can. I think she wouldn't be surprised. She was a very astute human being of human nature. I think that she would be shocked how our government has really kind of turned their backs on them. They gave their lives in the very most honorable way you can. They were rescuing the vulnerable people of Afghanistan that we were leaving behind. And to turn your backs on them is just, I don't understand it.
All right. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you. Always helps to hear from somebody who is actually there in times like this.
You.
Do let us know if you get a response from either President Biden or Vice President Harris, all right?
I will. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Frank Sesno here, Director of Strategic Initiatives, School of Media and Public Affairs, George Washington University in studio. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Thank you. Just in terms of this story, what is the bigger scandal that the media looks at? A, that Donald Trump brought a campaign photographer to this ceremony, and you can argue whether it's for political purposes or whatever, put out this video with the consent of the families. Or B, that 3 years after 13 American Marines died, service members died, we still have very few answers about what went wrong and the breakdown in command and the orders that were given to either shoot or not shoot the suicide bomber.
Well, I might take a different take on the scandal.
Okay.
I think part of the scandal is oversimplifying this story, actually stories, because there are many of them. All right. What is true and what is factual is that the Trump campaign disobeyed the very strict rules and regulations of what and how you can be in Section 60 at Arlington.
Okay.
What is also true is that there is a legitimate story that requires more time and attention, as you say, as to what went wrong and what Kamala Harris's role was in what went wrong. The third story that's also scandalously been ignored here is that there was a very detailed, objective, independent report from the Office of the Special Inspector for Afghanistan that laid blame on both the Trump administration and the Biden administration for this chaotic collapse. And what we don't have in political campaigns is any time, any attention span to stop, take a step back, and put things in context. What we just heard from the family member there is agonizing. And it is incredibly painful to see these families put in the crossfire of this political duel here.
No,
but that's where they've been put.
No, that is where they've been put. But just to get back to, and I think about when Kristen Welker was like, no, they were there.
Big mistake.
Bill O'Reilly made the point that the media may not be complicit in trying to elect Kamala Harris, but is certainly compliant in it. They cannot wait to sink their teeth into any story that is bad for Donald Trump or any theme within a story that is bad for Donald Trump, and are quite nuanced about any story that might criticize Kamala Harris.
What I would say about the media in all of this is that she needs to be scrutinized as actively and as aggressively as Trump is.
You say she needs to be.
She needs to be.
You're saying, no, that's not happening.
I'd like to see more of it. What are her policies? What are the costs of the policies? She was the last person in the room, she says, in Afghanistan. Well, okay, that's a nice line. What does it mean? What did she say? What did she recommend? I don't think it's fair to say because she was the last person in the room, she was responsible for that. That also is media malfeasance if you're just leaping to that conclusion. But there is genuine reporting that needs to be done on the role she has played in this and in other policy matters too, but particularly in this. Let me also say this. I think we should all abide by this. The debate over policy is fair enough, but those who sacrifice That kind of sacrifice should be honored and respected. And that's also tough stuff when you've got campaigns like this going on.
All right. Fair enough.
All right.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. President Biden and his administration evidently have finally figured out, we are told, how to deal with Hamas. After Hamas executed 6 hostages, including 1 American, why it might actually work when we come back. With breaking news in the past few hours, the Biden-Harris administration announced they have indicted senior members of Hamas. Here's Attorney General Merrick Garland.
This weekend, we learned that Hamas murdered 6 more hostages, including Hersh Goldberg Poland, a 23-year-old Israeli American. We are investigating Hersh's murder and each and every one of the brutal murders of Americans as acts of terrorism.
You'll note that is a produced video put out by the Justice Department on YouTube. Merrick Garland didn't want to take any questions because the move is utterly feckless and borderline insulting. And of course, news organizations will now treat this as the Biden administration doing something about Hamas. We've got a bunch of news alerts. The administration indicts Hamas leaders. Among those indicted is Yahya Sinwar, who you see behind me. Got news for you. Israel has been trying to kill Sinwar for a decade. The guy sleeps in a different bed every night and is surrounded by bodyguards and hostages. And America has decided their big move is to indict him. He is certainly terrified right now. To give a little perspective, this is like sending Elon Musk a parking ticket for $10 to show you are doing something about parking laws. It is laughable. President Biden, the media, and the world now blame Israel for Hamas executing their hostages. Joel Rubin is here, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs under President Obama. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Leland.
I'm angry.
Yeah.
One, that it happened, the execution. But is this as feckless as it seems?
I share your anger.
Okay. You think my analysis is fair?
Hate what is happening. Hamas's devilish organization. This indictment, you're right. Look, this is not anything very serious. A year later, Hamas is guilty of committing crimes against Americans and terrorist attack. Surprise, we know that, right? But the bottom line is this. The Biden team has been providing unlimited supplies of weaponry to Israel for the past year to attack Hamas, find them, and root them out. And Israel has killed over 10,000 Hamas fighters. This is not a feckless policy.
Okay, couple of things on that. One, the hostages were killed in Rafah, executed in Rafah, which is where the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, who's seen the maps, put huge pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu not to go into. 2, when asked over the weekend about getting more hostages back and a ceasefire deal, this was the exchange with President Biden and a reporter. Take a listen.
Do you think it's time for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more on this issue? Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
Okay, so no, he is not doing enough.
Yeah, but he has a reason to say
Netanyahu responded, though. Okay,
yes.
Here it is. August 20th, Secretary of State Antony Blinken calls for Hamas to accept an extraordinarily generous ceasefire deal that was offered by Israel. May 31st, President Biden says Israel has agreed to enduring Gaza ceasefire proposal, which Hamas did not agree. August 16th, Hamas refuses new ceasefire deal as Biden applauds progress. August 28th, hostage deal fate in Hamas's hands, meaning Israel has already agreed to it, says the CIA deputy director. Those are all things that Prime Minister Netanyahu quoted. Here's my question, because that's my job to ask them. Why doesn't anybody ask if Hamas should do more?
Everybody's asking Hamas to do more. That is where this whole story is.
But nobody, hold on.
I'll tell you.
That's not what President Biden said.
President Biden right now is pressing Israel, as he should, and the United States is pressing Hamas, as we should and as we are, by sending the military support that we have been to Israel, by providing intelligence support underneath that as well. That is a crucial component to rooting out Hamas. It is an evil, diabolical organization. It should have no role in the future governance of Gaza. But For example, what we're watching right now in Israel. 500,000 Israelis protesting in the street, calling on Bibi Netanyahu to make a deal. The defense minister getting in a shouting match with the prime minister at a cabinet meeting saying, we need to cut a deal. What you're asking for right now is moving the goalposts on the negotiations. I think that's where the president's coming out. He's saying, we've had these agreements. We have a structure. Let's close this deal like the Israeli people are demanding.
Okay, well, to be fair, some Israeli people and others are not. The Israeli populace is as divided as America.
Well, the IDF across the board also is pretty strong in favor of a deal.
Well, the IDF's also been fighting a war for 10 months because they've had to because of the U.S. Perhaps making them fight with one hand behind their back. I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds here. Does the U.S. risk becoming, for lack of a better term, impotent in the Middle East when President Biden says things over and over and over again and they don't happen?
I really do think that we run the risk of being seen across the world, of not being able to get the results we need if we are not able to get this deal done. And that's why it's so important. But if the United States, if we can't get this deal done and Israel walks and Hamas walks, we're going to have a continual war. That's bad for the entire region. It's bad for the Israeli people.
When we have more time, we're going to come back and talk about how this only benefits Iran. Good to see you, my friend.
Thanks.
Thank you. Donald Trump cleaned the floor with Joe Biden by not practicing for the big debate. Will the same strategy work with Harris?
I'm not spending a lot of time on it. I think my whole life I've been preparing for a debate.
8 hours a day of rehearsals, crafting answers, and practicing zingers. Former Hillary Clinton aide Philippe Reines will play Donald Trump just like he did for Hillary Clinton. You can see him there practicing with her in 2016.
You're thinking through what might happen, and you're doing the same thing when you're at home. We all do it to some extent in our jobs. And sometimes people come up with the best lines that way. Hillary, you know, she had thought about everything that came up, but not because we told her to or not because we thought of it, just because you get the juices flowing.
All right. So that is how Kamala Harris will prep. Donald Trump, unsurprisingly, says he's going to wing it.
President Trump, how are you specifically preparing for the debate versus Harris?
I'm not, really. I'm not spending a lot of time on it. I think my whole life I've been preparing for a debate.
With us now, Ashley Davis, former White House official for President George W. Bush, and Shaniqua McClendon, Vice President of Political Strategy at Crooked Media. For those of you who do not know, it is Pod Save America, the liberal podcast, must listen audio across the political spectrum.
I have video.
Video. Okay, there you go. I'm old-fashioned. I'm a podcast guy. All right. Is this, the fact that Trump is not preparing and winging it, is that something that liberals will actually believe Donald Trump on saying?
Yeah. I mean, he gets up on stage at his rallies and is clearly winging it. I mean, he has a teleprompter, but I would hate to be the teleprompter person who's...
Oh, it's the worst job. It's the worst job in politics. And occasionally, as you all know, you'll be at a place and you'll be able to see the teleprompter because they'll put the big screens out there for him, and you can see it scrolling up and down. When this happens, debate rules, muted microphones, no live audience, no notes, no visiting with campaign staff in breaks, 2 minutes for answers and rebuttals, no asking each other questions. Ashley Davis, I would submit to you, but I'd submit to both of you. Debates really matter now all of a sudden. This is becoming, this is much watched TV. We look at the rules. Does this favor one or the other?
I think it helps him just be more disciplined, and that's what he needs to do. Obviously, everyone's waiting to see if he's going to have his gaffe, or especially now that it's her and not President Biden, that he doesn't go after her and offend women in general, which is, I would think, the biggest liability. But I actually do believe him that he's going, so I do think it, to answer your question, that it helps him more than it helps her. However, she does have a problem with maybe going on a little bit too long and not making sense for everything for her answer, so it could help her as well.
Off camera.
Is that a very nice way to say that?
I think it will.
Diplomatic, I might say. But look, okay, I'm old enough to remember ahead of the Trump-Biden debate when Democrats were extraordinarily confident that Donald Trump was going to lose his cool and Joe Biden was going to have command of the issues and everything was going to be a downhill walk for Joe Biden after that, and then this happened. Take a listen.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban. on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Shaniqua, is there just a small chance Democrats are underestimating Donald Trump?
I don't think so.
No?
He did not do well in that debate. President Biden did bad. Everyone admitted that. But if he had even done decently, we would have been focused more on how bad Donald Trump did. He lied throughout the debate, and he actually said a bunch of things that didn't make sense either. He just said it coherently with confidence. And so now you'll have the vice president there standing next to him saying things that make sense, that are accurate and honest, and she'll actually be able to rebut a lot of the stuff he's saying, and that is something that President Biden just did not do.
He just needs to be disciplined and talk about the economy, talk about the border. If he does that, which I actually think I know where you're going, I actually think he can be controlled if he tries really hard. But as soon as she says something, which is why they're practicing for 8 hours the zingers.
You know what?
To get under his skin.
I think he could be in some world. I think he actually was pretty disciplined when he was up there with President Biden. But he really cannot control himself around women.
So you think it really comes down to the women issue?
Yes, he cannot help himself. He's going to go after the low-hanging fruit. He's already talked about her race. He's already called her stupid and all of these other things. If you look back to the National Association for Black Journalists, he's up there with 3 black women journalists, one that he's friendly with from Fox, but Rachel Scott that he just immediately started attacking.
Well, to be fair in that situation, okay, she started attacking him, okay? I mean, it was in the form of a question, but it was an attack.
Now, even in that situation, wouldn't it have been in his best interest to keep his cool and respond calmly? But he couldn't. And so imagine what he's going to be like on stage with the vice president, who's going to be not nearly as nice as Rachel was. Her whole point of being up there is to make a point and make the difference and distinction between them. And he's going to do what he always does. He won't be able to resist it.
Okay. I guess, so that actually presents a pretty big opportunity, right, for Donald Trump. If that's Democrats' game plan, which it seems to be, there's an opportunity there.
Right. If you even read the op-ed today from James Carville. I mean, James and Mary.
We have it. Ms. Harris must enable exactly what his campaign is scared to death of, letting Trump beat Trump. She should let him talk over her.
And full disclosure, James and Mary are friends of mine, so I'm definitely biased towards James. But I think he's exactly right, is what he needs to set out. But that's what the Trump campaign's reading, and that's what he knows he needs to do. So this is why I give him a little bit more credit. That he'll be able to do it.
Just one thought there. His campaign knows that the mic should be muted. That's why they push for it. And he's still saying, no, I'm fine with them being muted.
Come on, that was...
No, he has no discipline.
Okay, no, it's fair. It's fair. All right. Good to see you. Thank you. Hey, great to have you. Thank you. Good to see you. Turns out conservatives and teacher unions actually agree on something. We'll end the show on a happy note. How they say they can stop school fight clubs when we come back. Kids are now back in school. It's only a matter of time before we start seeing more scenes like this. Teachers' unions around the country now say cell phone bans might be the only answer. And more states are starting to enact them. Florida, Indiana, Louisiana, and South Carolina are leading the way in banning cell phones in classrooms statewide. In fact, Florida made it a law. Robert Pondicio, senior fellow, American Enterprise Institute, former 5th grade teacher in the South Bronx, joins us now. Robert, what I think is interesting about this, and maybe gives us some hope for our schools, which Lord knows they need it, is it's something that it seems like conservatives, traditionalists, and even the teachers' unions are getting on board with.
Yeah. No, look, to me, this is a clear, unambiguous win to ban cell phones. I just can't think of a good reason why a kid would need a cell phone out in their hands in class. They're classroom cancer. They're a distraction. They inhibit learning. They promote all kind of behaviors that you don't want to see in school. The arguments that tend to be made that, we need them for safety and whatnot, just don't carry any water. I mean, kids have gone to class without cell phones for literally hundreds of years. And just in the last decade or so, now they have them, and now they're supposed to not be able to live without them. I'm just not seeing it.
You think about percent of students behind grade level, 32% K through 12 students behind grade level in public schools, 2024. And yet, of all of the issues we talk about and we hear about mattering in the election, and we hear the candidates talk about day in, day out, and we went back and looked, education just isn't even there. It's not part of this election, and it is the future of our kids.
Yeah, look, be careful what you wish for. Education, famously, the word doesn't appear in the Constitution, so it's not a surprise that it's not showing up in the presidential election. It's a state issue. Now, if my governor's not talking about it, then it's a problem. But I'm struck by the data you just showed about student achievement. Look, let's be clear, that's not because of cell phones, but cell phones don't help. You hear all the time about people multitasking. Well, there's really no such thing. Kids can't multitask. None of us can. What you're doing is changing your attention second by second. So a cell phone in a kid's hand during the school day, think of all the distractions that come over. They get a text message, they get an email, they get a message on Snapchat or some such. That's taking their attention away from what they're supposed to be learning.
Yeah, the number 72% of high school teachers say student cell phone distraction is a major problem. I'm kind of wondering what the other 28% say.
Well, look, you're always going to have some number of teachers who are trying to say, hey, look, these kids are digital natives. They're going to, always have these phones, so we have to learn to teach with them. I'm a little bit old school, I got to confess. It's a struggle to get kids' attention and to get them to learn. So that's one distraction they don't need. But when you've got 72% of anybody agreeing on anything, that says something.
Yeah, that's very true. Hard to get 72% of Americans to agree that they like puppies, at least. All right, Robert, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Boy, it was nice to get a break for Labor Day weekend. Hope you spent it with some people you loved, got a little bit of a break, a respite. And here we go. 1 week from tonight, the big debate.